two basic approaches. First approach, that we can take some components from the front side. So whenever we are saying front side or user side of the search system, it means we are talking about these these visualization interfaces, and after that, then we could have open about evaluation system, ranking system, matching schemes, all those things. But because most of the scientists in the information science domain, they assume that for a search system, it is this index block which is playing a key role, actually key role, or maybe the pivotal role, because the whole entire performance of search system. So when I say entire performance of search system, it means whether it is query response time, whether it is efficiency of ranking, accuracy of ranking, whether it is accuracy or performance of matching scheme, whether it is the performance of evaluation system. So all these things are basically depends upon the index block. So all the components in the index block are playing some kind of role. So that's why whenever we used to discuss, whenever we are planning to design a search system, it is important, or it is critical to have this emphasis on the components which are placed in the index block, right? So whenever you go for any book related to search system, they will be covering this second portion, this index portion first, right? Because entire things are based on these things. That is first reason. Second reason is that because like in the software engineering, whenever we are designing a software, naturally we will have some set of requirements, functional requirements. But whenever we are basically planning to start the design phase, or maybe coding phase, you need to have some kind of idea about the possible set of data, right? So data, I'm saying the data and data type, right? That is something which will be having a very important role in the overall system design. So here also, whenever we are designing a search system, whenever we are trying to design a new system or new kind of environment for search systems, search behaviors, or search processes, we need to always confirm about these things, that what will be the type of data which will be coming to the system, which system will be supporting, extracting and sharing to the user. So you should always careful about or concerned about the type of data, right? So whether it will be image type, or whether it will be document, whether it will be website, or anything, any kind of data. So you should always have this kind of alertness or awareness about the possible data which will be coming to the system, right? So whenever we are designing a search system, naturally the first component will be a component which will be acquiring the text, acquiring the data, right? Acquiring the data. And naturally, if you read the system requirements from the SRS, system requirements, it is very clear, or it is very evident that this kind of data will be coming to the system, or system should be collecting this kind of data. So based on that only, the nature of data will play an important role, and based on that only, you will be designing this very first component, which is called text acquisition, or maybe we can say it as a text extractor, data scraper, or maybe you can say plainly as a crawler system, right? So typically, whenever we read any kind of textbook on the search system, they use this term called text acquisition for crawler, right? So crawler is something which is very conveniently used whenever we are referring a component for acquiring the text. So like in the initial lectures, we have taken this term text acquisition as a block, as a building block of the system. Within this component, we could have a program which will be basically designed to acquire the data, and that data could be of any type, naturally, right? So naturally, within this crawler program, because it could be having multiple threads or multiple programs within it, right? Because crawler is a program which will be generalized as a program which will acquire all the data, all the required data, right, which should be built or which should be gathered into the system, right? And naturally these gathered data will be used in the form of index and or maybe maintained in the form of as a document, and later on when user query will be raised, it will be served to the user, right? So naturally, whenever we initiate this program called crawler, it will acquire the data objects or data, right? So you can see here we have kept as a few bullet points to say that whenever we are planning a web crawler, right, and objective here is to acquire or extract or collect the possible documents or possible data from the, it may be from the website, from the internet or from the web, or it may be from some corpus, or it may be from any local system also. So input for crawler or text acquisition component could be anything. It could be a entire internet, or it could be a simple coming from a simple hard drive, or it could be coming from your local desktop, or it could be coming from some mail server, or it could be coming from some set of contact list also. It could be from some kind of external input to the crawler also. So crawler is a program which will basically extract the details, right? So we will be discussing upon the different components and different types of crawler, and naturally the different challenges which could be there whenever we will be planning to design a crawler system. So if you can read that for any search system performance, it is a key factor, right? Key factor, because based on this only, based on the data accumulated, based on the data extracted, the whole performance of such system depends, right? Because it will gather the required or relevant data from the source, and it will preserve all the data inside the search system, and based on this collected data only, the whole search system will work, right? So that's why it is very critical component of the search system. So whenever we plan to design a search system, naturally within that, whenever we plan to design a crawler, it should always with respect to crawler. So I am saying it is always with respect to SS requirements. So it means you should be concerned about the type of data which will be coming or which will be available, and how this data will be stored, because you can collect all the data, but you need to prepare it. That's why we need this component called text transformation, right? And eventually all the collected data in the document data stored will be served to the user based on the matching between index term and the user query keywords, right? So this text transformation again having some role, but whenever we are planning to design crawler, it should always with respect to the requirements which we have planned for the search system, right? And primarily if it is designed as per the requirement, it will naturally serve the better user query response time, right? Because it will be having some basically compatible or maybe effective index terms, and based on these index term only, you can say that my system is delivering a very delivering user query results in an efficient way within a particular time response time, basically, right? Similarly, if you plan a crawler in a very systematic way, optimized way, your whole result coverage and diversity will be maintained. So one of the non-function requirement in the search system design is that system should deliver, it is a diversity among the retrieved results. It should have some detailed coverage on the user query term, right? So these are some kind of non-function requirement which will be automatically delivered when we plan a proper or optimized crawler, right? So there are various other factors also, various other you can say the parameters or maybe important points whenever we are planning a crawler system. So now before going into the more components or maybe more functional aspect of the crawler, you can see here there is 4 different or 5 different steps which are shown or which could be the base of any crawler, right? So this architecture which is shown in the second diagram is of a crawler on the web, you can see there is a cloud shapes shown. This cloud shape entity is a maybe internet or maybe any web entity. Web entity, I'm saying web entity because if you have some idea about the internet or maybe web, world web. So world web is having different again local entities, right? So some people say there is a closed web, there is a dark web or deep web also, and there is this web which is available for most of the users of the internet, right? So webs are having different local webs also, local web entities also. So whenever we are referring this web, it means it is having all these entities. So for a crawler which we are planning to design on the web, so this web entity, all the data objects kept in the web or maybe internet are basically the source. So all the objects which are available in the web will be utilized or will be extracted to the system, to the crawler actually, right? So here you can see this web is a source, and actually whatever we will be extracting at some stage of crawler will be kept in local repository. So this local repository is nothing. It is either a document data store or maybe indexer. So local repository indicates that, like in our search system conception, we have assumed that the text acquisition block will be extracting data, and it is sending the data into two places. One is to indexation, other is to text transformation block. So these two, document data store and index data corpus, will be considered as a local repository because they are defined in a local environment. So here you can say, so web is the source for the information object or data source object. Then we will be keeping all these extracted details into the local repository, and along with it we will be maintaining some kind of list which is called URL list. So it is kind of maintaining the history. So basically a crawler begin with some set of URLs or maybe some set of visitor links actually, right? So if you are designing a crawler to extract data objects from internet or web, naturally you're designing a web crawler. If a crawler is designed to extract the file details from your desktop, it is a local desktop or local crawler basically. So you can design a crawler by having some definitions and by having some specific input, right? So to start a crawler program, because it could be an automated program also. So to start a web crawler program or a crawler program, you need to have some starting information, source information. So if you are designing a web crawler, naturally you will be providing 1 or 2 or 3, maybe some set of URLs you should provide to start the program, right? So once this crawler your program is having some initial seeds, initial hints to start this program, he will immediately pick one URL or one source or one link, outlink, and extract it or maybe download that content which is kept in that URL or maybe that source, and extract all possible URLs or all the possible sources within that website, right? So if I place the URL of NIT Kurukshetra website, it will extract all the information in the website, and if there is other additional URLs kept in the NIT Kurukshetra website, it will extract all those URLs also, right? So it will begin with some seed of URLs, then one by one it will visit to that specific URL, first URL, then second, then fourth, and while visiting that first URL, it will extract all the page content, and along with it will extract all the URLs placed on that particular website, right? So basically there is primarily 3 steps of URL is planned. First is naturally there should be a page downloader, right? So whenever we are providing a URL to the crawler, it will basically reaches to that particular website, extract all the content and download it to the local site. Local means or maybe a local repository, and then extract or parse for other existing or available URLs in that website, and if found, it will again extract that URL and keep in the list, right? And then again repeat the loop, right? So you can see there are these 4 steps involved. So naturally, the first step is to URLs to be. So you need to provide some seeds, or maybe it will already have some list of URLs or websites. So it will pick all the URLs one by one. It will download the particular content page content of that particular URL, and extract the URLs, right? So this whole thing will be repeating, maybe indefinite, or maybe some particular timeline, or based on some deadline also, right? So it will be a very simple p persistent based system, which will be working on some kind of conditions or preconditions also, right? Like if you want to design a crawler for your search system, which is a web search system or web search engine kind of scenario, naturally your crawler will be keep checking or keep crawling continuously, right? Because at each moment or each instance of time, there are some content, there are some pages has been added into the internet or maybe world web. But if you are designing a crawler to extract the details from certain websites, you do not need to run it for all the day, all the time, all the months or years. You can program your URL to run once in a day, twice a day, something like that. And if you're designing a crawler to extract the news articles from different news sites, news websites, you need to run it on each interval of 5 minutes or something like that, right? Because whenever we are executing a crawler and whenever you are requesting or downloading a page, it will affect the performance of those websites also. So we will be opening about those challenges also. So first, let's understand these basic architecture. So these are the 5 or 6 steps involved while we are designing a crawler. Now, if you see in the crawler's design, basically we need 3-4 components. Naturally, the very first thing you need some set of seed URLs. Seed URLs are the URLs or the list of you can say the sources where you can start extracting the information, extracting the data objects. Second thing is, naturally you need a very small thread program which is called URL downloader. So naturally for that you need to have a simple parser, right? So if you have web content of a web page, you should parse these contents, and if there is a URL found, you can separate this URL link and keep in some keywords, keep it in some listing of frontliners, right? Similarly, after that, you need to have some kind of content extractor or data scraper, right? So based on the parsed information, so on a website which you have with you, then you will be executing a parser, you will be executing a content extractor that will be scrapping the data, and either it is simply saving it or maybe creating a duplicate copy of the data that you can have. So you can have two strategies. Either you can download the data as it is from the website, or secondly you can duplicate it. So basically scrapping is a policy which can scrap the data and create its duplicate. And after that, naturally, to store all these things, you will be having some local repository or local data document stored. So these 3 or 4 things you need whenever you are planning for a crawler design. After that, if you can see, okay, so there is a very basic terminology based definition for a crawler is that it is an automated program, or it can be said as a tool also. Sometimes it is referred as a bot, to extract the data, right? Data. So sometimes data could be content, or sometimes it could be a seed URL also. Sometimes it is a web page content, right? Web page content. So content, yes. So it could be of any of these 2 types, right? So so whenever we are running a crawler, it will be extracting either web page content, or sometimes it is simply collecting the URLs also. So it is up to your definition of the crawler, right? Because naturally crawlers are designed to extract the data, right? Extract the data, acquire the data. So if I give you assignment that can you design a crawler to extract the extract the profile information like name, designation, education qualification, address, phone number, and email IDs of all the director of all NITs. So you need to have a very careful design of crawler, because naturally you will be exploring all these 29 NITs websites, and within that you will be collecting the information of these 29 different individuals. But it is very difficult sometimes. It has become very difficult sometimes, because the formation of different websites where you will be exploring or extracting or parsing, it could be of having different organization of the information. So that is again a challenge for crawler designs. We will be taking into the details. So again, the basic operations. So based on the basic architecture which we have seen, you can have these basically steps involved, basic operations, right? So before going to this, let me read some comment. It is Chodakshi says the set of seed URLs we are giving to the crawlers are given when we are programming a crawler to work for first time, or okay. So naturally, seed URLs are something which you should provide to the crawler when you start your crawler. So basically, to start your crawler, you need to provide some seed URLs. After these minimum or maybe 3-4 URLs, 3-4 web links, it should again basically extract some URLs, further set of URLs, and start working likewise, right? So because without having any seed, your crawler will not start working, right? You need to provide at least one seed. It is like this scenario, that without any external seed, it will not start working, right? So you should provide some seeds at least. So not while programming this program for crawler, you need to provide externally, right, as an input variable or as an input source, right? So based on the basic architecture, we can have some kind of basic operations also. So naturally, it will begin with some known seeds or URLs, naturally, which we have just discussed. After getting these few URLs, the initial seed, it will fetch the web page of these URLs. So if you have provided 1 or 2 URLs, it will go into that web page placed on that URL. It will go to the internal or inside the web page and parse that particular pages. So if you have provided the NIT Kurukshetra website, it will go to the first page of the website, then it will open the sub pages, right, and parse the content of these pages. Then if after parsing or maybe during the parsing of the page, if it realized that crawler program realized that there are some URLs located in these pages, it will extract those URL pages, right? So along with extraction or parsing of the content of the page, it will extract the URLs placed within these pages, right? So because because crawler is a program which will be extracting all the possible source of information which will be required. So that's why it is extracting the content and extracting the URLs within these pages separately, because it is assumed that if there is a website link, there is URL is given inside these web pages, it might be useful, it might be having some relevant information. So it will extract all those website links within the page and keep in some kind of queue or some kind of temporary storage, so that after exploring these 2 seed URLs, it will open all these URLs which basically it has collected from the web pages, right? So it will extract all the URLs or URL points in the web page, place these URLs on some kind of queue or front rears, fetch each URL and queue. And so basically, it is basically based on seeds. So initially seeds we will be providing, and after that your program will be automatically collecting the seeds, right? So basically, it is having only broadly 3 different phases and 3 different works you should be designing. So as far as design purpose, whenever we are designing a crawler program, it will have 3 threads actually. 3 threads, right? First thread is actually it will take seeds from the seed list, right? And it will follow one of the URL. So if you are providing 2 seeds, and if your crawler program is having 2 downloader or fetcher program, it will concurrently go to 2 different websites, 2 URL seeds, and extract the content and the URLs and arrange those URLs into the queue, and at last it will call a program to take out the URLs from the queue and again start it. So basically most of the crawlers which are existing in the internet, they are having n number of threads. No, so multi-threading, multi-programming kind of things. So any crawler is having crawler which is designed for web-based information source. It is having n number of threads programs, so that they can extract the information from the n different seeds concurrently, right? So it is up to you only that how many threads you are designing into it, right? So because unless you are not having multiple threads of a crawler program, it is very difficult. Sometimes it will become a complex program, complex task to gather the information, right? So some of the known or so-called famous crawler programs you can read here. So Google is naturally having Google Bot program as a web crawler programs. Then they are having different Google Bot for desktop, also Google Bot for mobile-based applications. Similarly, Bing is again a search system, so it is having a Bing Bot as a crawler program. Then Index is a Russian search system, one of the Russian search system. It is again available in the internet. Baidu, which is a Chinese search engine, so they are having this Baidu as Spider Bot, right? So very often it is assumed that this crawler is an automated program, but it is not necessary. You can design you can say the manually or maybe not so-called automated program also for the programmer, which could run by some external execute command or external performance command, something like that. But because you are designing a web crawler program for such system, naturally your crawler should be working basically all time. So if you are creating a very specific or personalized crawler program, then you should be running on a different time intervals. So it is up to your needs that for which scenario we are building a search system, right? So based on this only, so you cannot say that okay, we could have only one possible type of crawler in the internet or maybe in the world, because we will be designing a different search system environments, search system applications. So for that, naturally we will be having different kind of crawlers also, different nature of crawlers program. So in the first level, if you see, we have placed 5 different types of crawler. First is called referred as a first type of crawlers are like universal or broad crawlers. Then we have preferential, and then within preferential you can see we have focused crawlers, we have topical, and we have forum crawlers. And after that we will be having hidden web crawlers. So not naturally, this hidden web crawler is for deep web. So deep web is a one portion of internet, one portion of world web. So for that, because if you're designing a very generic crawler program, it will not penetrate to the deep web level or deep web entity. So for that, we will be designing a very personalized, very specific crawler program. Naturally, then we have mobile crawlers. Actually, this is a very one kind of crawler programs. Which could be basically placed to a server application, right? Like in this website kind of scenario where we are having 29 NIT's website and we are collecting some information from these websites. So it is easy, but sometimes some of the informations are placed on the servers. They are not appearing in the interface where crawler can extract the information. So those kind of scenario, you can design a mobile crawler. This mobile crawler will be like a small program which could be directly placed into the servers, but where data is placed, right? So it is a little different from the previous 3 types of crawling speed. Then we have last type of crawler. It is called continuous or incremental crawler. So these search engine crawlers for the search engine search systems are designed with this nature, which is continuous and incremental nature. Right, so there is a very slight difference between this continuous or incremental with universal, right? So we will be opening up about these different types of crawlers. So let's take the very first type, which is called universal web crawler. So naturally, basically this is a most generic type of crawlers. So they are designed to follow naturally to follow the links on the web pages to discover and download new pages, right? So whenever a new page is appearing, it will download it. So wherever in the internet, wherever in the world web, any page or any document is added, it will extract the content of that page, right? So it will work, indirectly, that's why it is said, and gets all the pages. Whenever a page is appearing in the internet, it will extract. So you could have a search system for world web support. So you could have this kind of crawler. So whenever we are designing a search system to support the worldwide users on the world web based documents, so you could be having this crawler, right? So this is a very generic and simple version of crawler. Then we have second type of crawler, which is referred as a preferential. You can see preferential means you can apply your preference, you can apply your interest, that only this kind of information will be required, my crawler will be collecting. So within that, these crawler does not crawl all the links, all the links means all the seeds and all the contents, all the links they encountered. Rather, they seek pages as per user submitted condition or topic of interest. So naturally, because after having the generic crawler in the universal or web crawlers, thus the very second step need is, okay, can I have a crawler, personalized crawler, which will be collecting information as per my need. So it will be collecting only few web pages, few portion of information on those web pages, something like that. So preferential crawler is basically having three types, three basic variations you can see. The very first subtype of preferential crawler is a focused crawler, right? So whenever you basically apply a topic, so any focused crawler will seek relevant pages to the specific topic, right? That is one thing, very definition. So you mention a topic, okay, name of the rector, phone number of the faculty, something like that. So if you mention 3-4 condition, which based on which the content should be extracted, content should be downloaded, it will extract these relevant informations, right? That is first thing. Second, there is a very specific or very narrowed type of crawler, which is called topical. So in this case, it will seek the pages which are having exact match content. So if you mention that name of the faculties, right? So it will list only the names of faculties from all the NIT websites, right? It will not extract any other individuals. So whenever there is a page which is mentioned that the name of name of staff, it will not extract it. If any particular web page is having name of faculty and faculty name, something like that, so it will extract only those few details, right? So it is based on exact match. So this term is very important, because based on this only you can differentiate between a focused crawler and a particular topical crawler. So focused crawler is basically getting pages which are relevant, right? But a topical crawler is getting all the content which are of exact match based information, exact match based pages, right? So in both cases, focused and topical, you need to provide a topic or condition or external value, right, based on which the information will be extracted. Now within this preferential, we will have this forum based. So forum based is a very special kind of preferential crawler. Like if you want to extract the information from all the bloggers of environment kind of domain, and if you want to explore all the researchers information, so all the person who are working on the information science domain, and if they are having these blogs or these pages, personalized pages. So forum is naturally a very closed web entity and closed web entity type, right? So all those kind of information can be extracted from these forums by this kind of crawler, right? So in this case, in the design of forum based crawler, you need to provide the seeds of all these pages, personalized pages or personalized blogs, right? So forum-based, it is usually observed that forum-based crawlers are not having this capacity to extract the URLs from the web page. So that's why you need to provide all the seeds, right? All the seeds in the case of forum-based crawler, and that's why it is considered as one of the weakest type of crawler. Okay, so after this type of crawling, preferential-based crawling, then we have this third type of crawler, which is called hidden web crawler, right? So basically, in this, you can see there is these type of crawlers are specifically designed for seeking the pages and information from the complex part of web, which is referred as a deep web. So I'm not sure how much you have idea about this deep web term or deep web concept, and so that's why I have placed in a few questions like you need to study these questions, that why it is called deep web, what are the different semantics of deep web, why deep web is created, so what is the purpose of creating a deep web, and why it is complex challenge to design a deep web crawler. So because out of these 5 types of crawlers, designing a crawler for deep web information extraction is considered as one of the challenging part, right? So naturally, it is the property of deep web which is making hard to penetrate it, to break it, right? So a generic, a simple crawler is not able to penetrate this layer due to the property of this web, this entity of web. So that's why you need to study about these few questions which are placed here to understand that what is this entity called deep web, and what are the property of deep web based on which or due to which it is difficult to break it and difficult to penetrate it, right? So after that, naturally, once you, so this is a very specific kind of crawler which is designed for deep web information extraction. So only because if you want to break this layer of deep web, you need to understand few of the properties of deep web. So if you got these information about some seeds or some information, because it is very difficult to get a single URL, single seed from the deep web, and if you somehow if you could arrange 1 or 2 URLs of the deep web, then you can easily penetrate this deep web, right? So because most of the secret entities or secret bodies in the world, they are operating in this layer of the deep web, but it is very difficult to get these URLs or maybe these informations for the information objects from this layer. And once you could arrange these URLs or these links, you can easily create a web crawler and extract the information, right? So to understand this, what could be the possible challenge for hidden web crawler designing, you need to have some idea about the properties of basically this deep web part. After that, we have this mobile crawler, which is again designed to use to extract the information which is kept in the server side, basically. So this is very, I mean, it is very common phenomena that most of the websites which are available in the public domain, they are populating very few part of the information to the website, because eventually our crawler will be extracting the information from the website. So all the generic web crawlers are extracting the information from the interface, right? And if you observe that the most of the information which I want for my servers, for my search system, it is kept in the server side. Naturally, you have to design a crawler which could be placed on the server systems. So once you basically place your server crawler into the server side, you can extract the information. But again, it depends on how much permissions this website or seed URL is giving you to place your server on place your crawler on the server side. So it again depends on the consent between the organization which is trying to design a crawler and a organization which is having this server or this information. Again, it is based on some consent. All right. So after that, we have last type of a very generic nature crawler, which is called continuous and incremental. So this is one of the similar kind of crawler of this first type, which is called universal and crawler. So both are similar, both are same in the nature, except one part, that in case of universal and web crawler, we are not able to extract the updates on the pages. So naturally, any universal and web crawler is getting the recently added pages in the internet, recently added pages in the entity, but it is not extracting the recently modified, added information. So whenever a particular web page is modified, whenever new information is added on a page, it will not sense that part, right? So for that purpose, they have designed this new type of crawler, which is called incremental and continuous. So it is one of the universal and it is one of the web crawler type, but it is designed with getting all the updates on the web pages along with the main page. So it will collect the new page naturally. Whenever a new page is added in the internet, it will extract it, and if there is a modification happened in that page in the very next moment, it will gather all these changes also, all these newly updated information also. So that is the only difference between continuous incremental with universal or a web page, right? So most of the systems, most of the modern web crawlers are designed with this nature only, right? So with this, I think we have most of the things we have captured. So there are two aspects which are yet to be discussed, that what could be the possible challenge, and naturally the last thing which we could take as today's discussion is so whenever we are designing a crawler, naturally you should be abiding by some policies, right? So basically, whenever we are planning to place a program on the internet or maybe on any generic platform or any global platform, you should be having some kind of protocol by self, that I should be following these guidelines. You cannot design a program which is called crawler to extract any sensitive information or any very personalized information and expose it to very unintended or unintentional users, right? So there are 3-4 policies which are publicly available. We could have additional policies also, like in modern scenario, different countries are having different data policy, right? So that policy is not kept here, but these are the 4 fundamental policies that any crawler, any web crawler should be having, right? So it should have, very first thing, it should have some kind of politeness policy, right? Politeness policy means it should not violate any data abiding policy for the website, from the website. So if we are collecting the information from different NIT's website, you should not extract the information and spoil or disperse in the public domain, right? So you should follow some kind of policy, some kind of information preservation nature. Similarly, your program should have parallelism policy, because suppose if you are extracting information from a particular website and that website is naturally having some kind of bottleneck on the performance, so you should have multi-threads on that website. That's okay, but it should not exceed to that download rate of that particular website or maybe from a particular web source, right? So because each and every web entity or web source is having some kind of limitations on the performance, so your crawler program or crawler thread should not exceed or should not violate these conditions. Otherwise, it will basically hamper the performance of their website. It will choke the performance of their website. So you should maintain some kind of parallelism policy, right? Then we have a robustness policy. It means your web crawler, whatever program you have designed for crawling, it should not be affected by some malicious program. So if any second or third person is trying to modify, trying to basically compromise your crawler, it should having this efficiency or sufficiency to deal with this immunity from that particular malicious intention program, right? So your crawler program should be very robust, right? It should protect themselves That is kind of policy you should have, because in other circumstances, if your crawler program is basically compromised, it may compromise the information also, collected information. So it is the responsibility of the crawler program that it should protect himself, right? At last, we will be having this revisit policy. Revisit policy says whenever you extract some information from a web source, from a web page or some from a URL, you should have some tendency that, okay, maybe after 10 days, maybe after 5 days, you will be again revisiting that page, right? It is not like that. Basically, within a day, you should be visiting a certain page on 100 times or 10 times, something like that. You should have a very uniform or maybe proportional policy to number of visits on a web source, on a web page. So these are the first 4 fundamental policy a web crawler or maybe any crawler is basically should be following or should be abiding with, right? So these are not all set up policy. There are various countries which are having this kind of internet policy or maybe data policy. So nowadays, because this information and this data is becoming very sensitive, it could be used for different purposes, negative, positive, on both senses. So now government bodies or different countries are having a very strict information sharing policy. So your crawler should be always it should behave as per these policies, right? So with this, naturally, we are closing today's discussion. Remaining part will be continued in the tomorrow's discussion. And okay, so we have got one question from Pradeep. So it states, how could a universal crawler keep tracking that new web pages is added on website, is added on video? So it is naturally designed in a way that it will sense the possible page. So like if you are designing a universal crawler, it will be sensing the possible modification. So it will naturally, any universal or web crawler will start with few seeds. It will collect all the possible seeds on the internet. It will collect all the possible information sources which are available in the internet. So naturally, to make a universal crawler, your program should be robust enough. It should be having n number of threads to collect all the possible information, right? And once you extract all the possible information and its sources, naturally, the next moment you will run your crawler, it will sense the next page, right? You need to maintain some kind of sequence, some kind of information policy within your data document store and local repository, so that you can identify that a new source is added, right? So it will be now this your question will be answered during the indexing thing, right? Because whenever we are creating indexes for the source, it will assign a unique identifier. So based on this identifier only, you can easily identify a sense that a new page is an entirely new page has been added, right? So with this, we are closing today's discussion.